This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. You can find all my work at mjmunoz.com. I am recording this a while after I had recorded the other section, which is a casual book chat on the Harry Potter series. So, I'm pulling up notes right now to give more of the full treatment, the professional treatment, the more measured treatment. And I'm going to admit to you that I used the Bing Chat AI function to pull together some information on the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. I'll share that with you now, and then I'll just let myself go into the casual book chat on Harry Potter Book 1, The Philosopher's Stone. So, or is it the Sorcerer's Stone? Depends on what country you're from, right? I'm from America. I only speak 2 languages, English and bad English. So, anyway, here we're going to go. That was really bad English. I'm so sorry. So, all right. Also, it is interesting to me that today is September 1st, the day that Harry goes back to Hogwarts, and it just seemed like the right time to release this. I have got a couple of these already ready and prepared. Prepared but not produced. So I decided today's the right day, September 1st, to produce this and get it released. So I hope you all enjoy. And if you want to hear about my writing woes, I made a super short, about 10-minute long episode of Story Over Everything, standard episode, and then I decided to make this Skimming Leaves episode separate for me to talk about Harry Potter. So, some facts. So the Harry Potter, it says, here's my facts about it. The book was written, The Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone, by British author J.K. Rowling, and it was her debut novel. That's pretty cool. The book was first published in the United Kingdom on June 26, 1997, by Bloomsbury, under the title Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Oh, so 97. Oops, I gotta adjust my thumbnail card thing that I made. The book was published in the United States the following year, 1998, by Scholastic Corporation under the title Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The book had an initial first printing of 50,000 copies and was acquired by Scholastic at an auction for a low 6-figure sum. I'm assuming the 50,000 copies was in the UK. The book won most of the British awards that were judged by children and other awards in the U.S. Which other awards? I don't know, it doesn't say. The book reached the top of the New York Times list of best-selling fiction in August 1999 and stayed near the top of that list for much of 1999 and 2000. The book has been translated into at least 73 languages and has been made into a feature-length film of the same name, as well as 6 of its sequels. I would say 7, because Deathly Hallows is a 2-part movie, right? There's 2 of them. The book has sold in excess of 120 million copies, making it the 3rd best-selling book of all time, behind the Bible and what? I don't know. Next bit of information. According to one source, the first Harry Potter book has 76,944 words in it. Assuming an average reading speed of 250 words per minute, it would take about 5 hours and 32 minutes to read it. However, this may vary depending on your reading speed and comprehension level. Another source provides a handy guide to reading the Harry Potter books for the first time with some tips and trivia. And there's a link there that I won't share because that's kind of weird. This is interesting to me. The reading level of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is measured by different metrics, such as Lexile rank, grade reading level, and guided reading level. According to various sources, the reading level of the first Harry Potter book is as follows. I have no idea what this means. Lexile rank 880L. What's that mean? I don't know. Grade reading level is 5 to 6 for ages 8 to 11, and grade reading level is 5, but Roman numeral V? I don't know why it's like that. These metrics indicate the difficulty and complexity of the text as well as the expected reading ability and comprehension levels of the readers. However, these are only general guidelines and may not reflect the individual difference among readers. Some factors that may affect the reading level of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone are the length of the book. The first book has 223 pages, which may be challenging for some younger readers. The vocabulary and sentence structure. The book contains some words and phrases that may be unfamiliar or confusing for some readers, such as British slang, magical terms, and Latin spells. The content and themes. The book introduces a fantasy world with its own rules and history, which may require some background knowledge and imagination. The book also deals with some topics that may be sensitive or scary for some readers, such as death, violence, and evil. Therefore, it is important to consider your own reading level and interest before choosing to read Harry Potter and Philosopher's Stone. Of course, that's just a chat GPT, pandering and soft pedaling, so I'm not going to continue reading that. So, I thought that was interesting, and yeah, now I will, after doing that little bit of an introduction there, I will let you hear my initial thoughts on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the UK, called the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, is an interesting book. My daughter finally decided to read the Harry Potter series, and I had read the first 2 books back in the day when I was in high school, actually, I think, and which it came out before I was in high school, but I was so late to it, and so much focus on other... I was playing Sonic Adventure on my Sega Dreamcast, okay? I didn't have time to read Harry Potter. Anyway, but I think I read the books before I started watching the movies. And, like, I remember my sister and her friend going to, like, a midnight release of it, which I guess if it released in the UK, you would have had publicity about it and people talking about how it's sweeping the nation. And that could have drummed of excitement, but I was like, what are you, a book about a wizard boy? What are you talking about? This is weird. You guys are weird. Why are you all excited for books? And then I realized books are super cool. So, anyway, which actually, ironically, because of interestingly enough, because of some things that are going on in my life right now, I actually kind of fell in love with books after reading some of the Star Wars books. So many cool, old school, expanded universe Star Wars novels, and anyway, very cool stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Harry Potter. So I decided to, anyway, my daughter's gotten into it, and it's been a long time, and I barely know Harry Potter because I watched like the first 4 movies maybe. I think I watched Goblet of Fire, which I thought was movie 5, but I don't really remember it that well. And I liked it all right. You know, I thought it was pretty cool. And you know, I hadn't read past the first 2 books, and I thought, you know what, there's an opportunity here. We're using the Cloud Library from our local library to get all these in audiobook format, which is super cool. And you know, why not give them a listen? So I've been mainlining Harry Potter books, and I actually have already finished book 2, and I thought, you know what, I may as well use this for Skimming Leaves, because it would be foolish not to. So here we go. I interrupt my planned schedule of books to talk about on Skimming Leaves to do a casual book chat about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I gotta say, now that I've listened to books 1 and 2, and I'm on the verge of listening to book 3, I gotta say, I'm very impressed with J.K. Rowling's planning and plotting that she did for the series. I think she must have taken a lot of notes and spent a lot of time. So some people, you can tell, it feels like they made stuff up. Again, touching on Star Wars, George Lucas made stuff up as he went along and massaged it all and wrote himself into corners and just made it work, basically. And he didn't even plan out the prequels as well as he could have, but he definitely stuck to his own vision, and I think that's why the prequels were not a disaster like unto the sequel trilogy. But again, we're not here talking about Star Wars, we're talking about Harry Potter, which is the story of an orphan boy who lives with his aunt and uncle until one day he tragically gets called, something crazy happens and he gets called into an adventure. And plenty of people have pointed out over the years how much you could say that Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter are similar characters to each other, and I would say just on the surface that's true, but the details are what make the difference, and the details are what matter, and I think Harry is very different from Luke in a lot of ways, and they're significant, and I would say beyond that, basic outline or sketch of the hero's journey, there are not many similarities between the 2 characters, which I think is good, because as much as I like one character and I can't stop referring to the franchise he belongs to, I also like Harry as his own entity. And, yeah, there's more parallels than that because of things that happen later on in the other books as you get into a little bit more of He Who Shall Not Be Named and his connections to Harry and whatever their parallels. It is interesting, though. But I think Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, is less a fantasy story, and it's more a coming-of-age series / like academy series, which I think I haven't read a lot of the genre, but I think the academy series is not a super old thing. Again, talking about Star Wars, I can't believe this. They have Jedi Academy books, and they have Young Jedi Knights books. I believe those are the two series that are written for kids, for a children's audience, and that started in the early 90s, so even before Harry Potter was released. I believe the first Harry Potter book released in 1997, and I'm going to guess the first Jedi Academy or first Young Jedi Knight book was released in like 94, 95. Just based on my background, history and knowledge with Star Wars. And I remember like some of the stuff was coming out in Scholastic catalogs while I was in school. I wasn't in high school until 2000, I think, so I would have been exposed to that stuff then, before then. Anyway, so I'm not super familiar with the genre of the like school, academy, boarding school type thing, but I think it's new-ish. It's definitely more popular now. You even have in like anime, you know, My Hero Academia, Little Witch Academia. You've got, you know, a lot of stories in anime that take place in school or high schools or whatever. But like this whole, we're going to do 1 year. Well, it tells you in book 1 that Hogwarts is 7 years worth of school, and it becomes pretty clear. Oh, each of these books is going to be 1 school year, and the crazy events that happen with Harry, or to Harry and his friends, and what they, you know, the adventures they go through throughout these as you're reading them. And I think that's apparent by book 1, because at the end of it, there's the hook for them coming back for the next year. And I gotta say, it's a gutsy move of Rowling to just think, I'm gonna make 7 of these, and I'm gonna put them out, and people are gonna like them, and it's gonna be a success, and I don't care what happens. Especially because that's risky. You know, how can you do that? But then again, I think, I don't know. I don't know what her mindset was, but it's really interesting. But again, I think she did a really good job of seeding things for the first book, or in the first book for later books. So, again, I don't know how to talk about this casually other than to talk around the book for the most part, which is what I've been doing most of this time. But, yeah, I'll just say this. It's interesting. There's stuff, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there are... It's really interesting how she tells a complete story while setting up the future stories. You get the introduction to the enigmatic character of Albus Dumbledore, and you kind of sense his favoritism towards Harry, and you sense that he's got a sweet spot for the kid, but you're not quite sure why. And I think by the end of book 2, it isn't 100% clear why, but the genre-savvy reader, the clever reader, the reader who's been really paying attention will see, oh, I think this is what the trajectory of the rest of the books are going to be. Which, again, I have not seen all the movies or read all the books, so I don't know the full trajectory of the series, but I know the broad strokes, and I believe I'm correct. But I think that's, again, seeded in book 1, and it's grown a little bit, it developed a little bit in book 2, and I think that's really interesting. There's something with Hagrid, the lovable, weird character Hagrid. He has at least 2 things that are seeded with him in book 1 that become manifest in book 2, which is really interesting, and I think there's even a little bit more to come from him, and it sets up different ideas. Like, you hear that he was, in the book 1, you hear that he was expelled from Hogwarts, although nobody knows why. You find out in book 2. But you also get to hear a mention of when he's with Harry in Diagon Alley buying his wand, or helping him buy his wand. You hear the wand maker, whose name I can't remember right now, ask or say something about Hagrid's wand being still in his possession somewhere, but being properly snapped in half, or snapped in 2. And it's kind of interesting because you get to see Harry put 2 and 2 together and figure that Hagrid still does have his wand, and the way that he's carrying it around, Hagrid is treating it like contraband, and he's got it basically concealed, and it makes sense. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And it's funny the way, like, you're introduced into it in like a kind of a backwards way. Like, Harry sees it being used, but he doesn't realize what it is, and neither does the reader, for sure. But it raises questions, and it brings up suspicion about Hagrid, which is actually utilized in book 2, because he's scapegoated for an incident that's going on, and he's actually scapegoated twice for the same incident, which is kind of funny. And it all makes sense in the context of who Hagrid is as a character and everything that you've learned about him up until that point, starting in book 1 and continuing through into book 2. So that's pretty fun, pretty neat. Let me see what else. I think the stuff with the dynamics between Ron and Hermione as friends, and even like Fred and George and Percy to some extent, and then Ginny comes along in book 2. Like the Weasley family is a great surrogate family for Harry, and they're marvelous. They're very lovely people, and they're a lot of fun. And it's interesting because they're these pureblood wizards, and Hermione's Muggleborn, and Harry is, I don't know if he'd be called a mix or not, because his mother is Muggleborn like Hermione was, but his father is, we don't know. He could be a pureblood wizard, or he could be whatever. So it's interesting. Like, you get basically, it's this coming of age story, but it's also like this. It's not only a coming of age story; it's like a coming of worth story. Like, Harry doesn't know why he's treated so shabbily by the Dursleys, and he hates it, and it's the worst. And he has learned to be like subservient, and he's learned to get by, and he's actually kind of, as a mistreated person, been given a lot of the tools that he needs to succeed in the wizarding world. He's been given the ability to, like, I don't know, kind of like be an independent thinker, kind of be a rebel, to know, to question authority. Like, the Dursleys are authority figures in his life, but they are corrupt, evil authority figures in his life who, if he just listened blindly to everything that they said, he would end up in a very bad way. But there's something resilient in Harry. There's something rebellious in him that endures and bucks against them, and that ability to persist in the face of hardship and to buck authority and to say, I know they told me to do this, but I'm not going to do that, and what they're saying is wrong, so I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do what I know is right, even if it costs me. That definitely, that's like a crucible for some of his character development, and it pushes him to do the things and to defy Voldemort and whoever else he needs to in book 1 and then also in book 2. And that's pretty interesting. I mean, I guess in that way it is just a coming of age story. It's just in the context of this wizarding world. And I don't know, it's really curious. And again, I don't think I finished my thought on this earlier. This isn't a pure fantasy series. It's like a coming of age story through this academy, subgenre or whatever. And I think it's really interesting. It, in an interesting way, it neuters the magic, and I grew up hearing, the Harry Potter fear, and like, I was around people who were saying it's evil, but then again, I heard people who were saying that Lord of the Rings is evil and Star Wars is evil, and like the Force is a replacement for God, and wizards are just evil, even though like Tolkien was a Catholic, and I don't know about Rowling, but she comes from a Anglican or Catholic probably background, being in the UK, and she has Halloween and Christmas and like all these different seasons are touched on in the school. They are all celebrated in the school, and they give Harry like a sense of normal life, and they're kind of like, broadly speaking, I don't know how big of a deal Halloween is or how it's celebrated in the UK, but in America I know what it's like, and I almost wonder if she left those like Muggle holidays in to add some familiarity with the kids and see, oh, well, this is how they do Halloween at Hogwarts. This is how they do Christmas at Hogwarts. This is how they do whatever at Hogwarts. And it's similar to my life, even though it's, fantastical and different and special in its own way. And I think the fact that it's in a school, the fact that it's a young hero, the fact that he feels, trod upon, basically, like all of those things make the character relatable to kids. and relatable to people who've gone through a school system. And I think probably the success of these academy type stories is that so many people go through the Prussian school system, and there's that familiarity with them, and it's like an instant, like they can commiserate with Harry with over how much his life sucks in these different ways, and the bullies he deals with, and the persons of Malfoy and his cronies, and even the home life being not so great. Some kids are gonna have that experience and some aren't, and everybody always imagines they have it worse than they do. So I've gone from talking about how interesting it was how Rowling seeded all this cool stuff for later on in the series, and now I'm talking about how it's interesting how like the formula and the format of the story make Harry and his friends more relatable and endearing to young readers. And I think that's good. I think you really need both, and I think Rowling did a good job at making these characters sympathetic, putting them in a familiar background and setting, and then adding in this splash of wonder and awe with all the fantastical elements that she put into the book. And there's some ridiculous things too, but the ridiculous, quirky elements are like what makes Harry Potter distinct from everything else, and they're interesting, and it's like she niched down by adding in the every flavored beans and the what is it, Gringotts bank, and all these different weird elements that are so quirky. They separate it and make it its own individual thing, and that's a good thing. That's clever. Now I'm talking about like as an author and thinking about how to brand and position my fiction so that it appeals to the most broad audience possible and in the deepest way possible. And I definitely think that's what Rowling did. But yeah, I don't want to talk about too much spoilers, even though I know it's an older property. But I think the really cool thing at the core of it is like this found family that Harry has in Hogwarts and in these other, with his school chumps, with Hermione and Ron, Neville Longbottom to a lesser extent, and again the Weasleys generally. But in the first book you don't get as much of the rest of the Weasleys as you do later on. So it is interesting how there's like the home life with the Dursleys, and then there's the school life at Hogwarts, and how the two are separated. And really, kids do have their own life at school because they spend so much time with those people, and they really do exist in these two realms. And it's interesting how sharp the relief is, or how sharp the contrast is in that, as you see Harry, you see everything with his life in the beginning with the Dursleys, and then you see how different it is at Hogwarts, and like he doesn't want to go back for Christmas or anything like that, and they probably don't want him back, and if he was back, they would treat him badly again. So that's all really interesting. I don't feel like it's a negative thing. It's about rebelling against your home family or the people who've taken you and are taking care of you, because the Dursleys are terrible people, and Lily and James Potter, Harry's parents, sounded like they were wonderful people. And the way that you learn by the end of book one that they died protecting him is really interesting, and it adds like a very sweet and touching aspect, I guess, to the tragedy of him being orphaned as a 1-year-old baby. And it's really interesting how I think the movie did a little bit of a better job like showing this. I think because they did flashbacks, like showing Lily protecting her baby. And in the book, it's a little drier, it's a little colder. I was expecting it to be this big emotional thing, because I still remember, that's like one of the things I remember most, is that, the love of this mother protected her son and like empowered him to overcome, the most powerful, death-dealing spell of this, super dark, super evil dark wizard guy. And the book didn't quite do as good of a job of that, I think. But it still did it. I'm going to wrap up now because I've been going on for too long, and I don't think I'm doing a very good job with book one. I think I need to do each of these books one after the other. I need to do the book chat after I finish each book so that I'm not muddling them together like I have in books 1 and 2. So it's funny to me that at the end of book 1, Harry passes out, wakes up in hospital. The final battle is over without him being 100% involved, even though he was involved. Like in The Hobbit, how Bilbo gets knocked out in the final battle, like in, what was it? We talked about this. In Taran Wanderer that happens, not in Taran Wanderer, in, is it the first book? Anyway, I think it's the first Prydain book. Taran, the main character, gets knocked out and gets out of a battle. That's by Lloyd Alexander. And then C.S. Lewis in A Horse and His Boy, Shasta, or Prince Kor, gets knocked out and misses out on the battle. And this is a really weird thing that my daughter and I noticed, that these fantasy-type authors keep doing to their young, innocent, sweet male hero protagonist guys. And it's an odd quirk. It's an odd thing to keep doing. And that happens in book 1 of Harry Potter as well. And then it's like explained to him how he had the victory over Voldemort. And it's an odd thing to do. I don't quite understand why you would choose that. I can understand why Rowling, as a fantasy reader, probably absorbed that trope and was like, oh, I'll do this. It'll be so funny. It'll be so sweet, just like those books I loved when I was a lass. And anyway, it's kind of odd. So anyway, that ends my casual, weird book chat about mostly the Philosopher's Stone, but a little bit of Chamber of Secrets, and I'll be back for another one talking about Chamber of Secrets alone. I hope you enjoyed that. Go to mjmunoz.com to leave any questions, comments, or other feedback you might have. There you can find all of my analysis, art, and fiction. I cover books, tokusatsu, comic books, anime, and more. Look around. You're sure to find something else that you'll enjoy as well. This has been a Story Over Everything production.